I'm Teacher Mike, and today I'm giving you 10 things that you should be doing if you want to improve your vocabulary. And although I am an English teacher, these are tips that you can use when learning any language. They are not just for learning English. Number 1 is to read, especially things that have lots of words that you have never seen before. Lots of people say things like, "I've tried reading before, but there were lots of words that I didn't know." Yes, that's the point. You are reading because you want to find words that you don't know. That is how you learn new words. If you already know all of the words, you aren't learning anything. And obviously, when you find new words and you can't figure out what they mean, look them up in a dictionary. Number 2 is to listen. And when I say listen, this includes watching TV shows, watching movies, watching videos on YouTube, etc. And just like with reading, your goal here is to find words that you don't understand or have never heard before. I usually recommend watching things with the captions turned off so that you can focus on improving your listening. However, when your goal is to improve your vocabulary, you might want to have the captions turned on so that you can see how new words are spelled. Number 3 is to speak every day, even if you are just speaking to yourself. In the morning, speak to yourself about everything that you are going to do that day. And during the day, speak to yourself about the things that you are currently doing and the things that you have already done. And here, again, the goal is just to find words that you don't know. However, instead of hearing or seeing a new word, when you're doing this, you're just going to notice that you don't know a word. For example, maybe you're at the supermarket and you're saying to yourself, "I need to buy," and then you realize that you don't know the word for the thing that you need to buy. That's an opportunity to learn a new word. And you can look the word up right then, or you can look it up later. Up to you. You probably have a smartphone, so just search. What do you call the yellow stuff that people put on hamburgers? You can also just use Google Translate or something like that. Although it's always better to try to use the language that you are learning and avoid translating things into your first language, occasionally translating a few basic words really isn't a big problem. Number 4 is very similar to number 3. However, instead of talking to yourself about what you're doing, you're just going to look around and see what things you can name and what things you can't name. And again, your goal is to find things that you can't name. For example, if you're in an office, it might go like this. That's a chair. That's a bookshelf. That's a window. That's... I don't know what that is. Then you just search. What do you call the thing that creates holes in pieces of paper? And now you've learned the word 3-hole punch. And with this one, you could also set a goal, such as, I'm going to learn one new word each place that I go today. Number 5 is to write. Writing is important because it's an easy way to make sure that you are using and not forgetting the language that you already know. However, just like talking to yourself, it's also a really easy way to discover which words you don't know. I especially recommend writing about things that you did earlier in the day or things that you're going to do later in the day, because this will help you learn the vocabulary that you need to talk about your daily life. But honestly, you can write about anything that you want. It's up to you. And when you're writing to improve your vocabulary, don't worry about your grammar being perfect. That's not the goal here. Your goal is just to discover which words you don't yet know, so that you can look them up and learn them. Number 6 is to always write down new words. Hearing or seeing a word one time does not guarantee that you will be able to remember it in the future. So when you see or hear a new word, make sure to write it down, either in your phone or in a notebook. And when you do this every day, you will have a big list of words that you can continue learning more about and practice using. And even if you forget to come back and review your list of words, just writing the word that one time is going to help you remember it more easily than if you hadn't written it. And this leads us to number 7. Every time you learn a new word, search for it on the internet, find some example sentences with it, and write those sentences down. And you can also try writing some of your own sentences with it. This is important because seeing or hearing a word in only one sentence does not guarantee that you fully understand what it means or when it's appropriate to use it. To really understand a word, you need to see or hear it used many times in many different situations. But when you first hear or see a new word, you might not always have time to do this. And that's why it's important to always write new words down immediately in your phone or notebook. That way, when you have time, you can just check your list to see which words you still have to do this for. This is also important because if you want to be able to remember and use new words in the future, you need to review them. And when you have 5 sentences for each word that you have learned, you can read those sentences out loud to review the word to make sure that you don't forget it, and also to practice speaking. Number 8 is to make flashcards for each new word that you learn. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining how to use flashcards because you probably already know how to use them, and if you don't, you can just watch my video about how to use them after you finish watching this one. But I do want to say that the reason that flashcards are so important is that they are a really simple way to review the words that you have learned recently. And reviewing the words that you have learned recently is something that you absolutely need to be doing, especially if you think that you might not have many opportunities to use those words in conversation. Also, it's up to you whether you want to use real paper flashcards or you want to use a flashcard app. They work basically the same way. Number 9 is to set a goal for how many words you are going to learn each day. If you have a lot of time and you are very serious about studying, you should probably aim to learn about 15 to 20 words each day. However, if you don't have much time or you're not very serious about studying, you could aim to learn just 3 to 5 new words each day. The important part is really just to have a specific goal, because if you have a goal, you're more likely to stay motivated and actually do the things that I mentioned in numbers 1 through 8. And finally, number 10. This one is to be open-minded and learn about all topics, even if they are things that you don't like or aren't interested in. This is because if you want to be able to communicate with lots of different people in lots of different situations, you need to be able to talk about lots of different things, not just the things that you like. So those are my 10 tips for improving your vocabulary, but if you have other tips, please make sure to share them in the comments.